For these questions, you're going to write the decimal that corresponds with the fractional part of the rectangle. And remember, corresponds just means matches or is equivalent. So let's look at this number line. It is from 0 to 10. We're going to let that represent the tenths of one whole. So below it, you see the blue rectangle. That's a whole rectangle, and it's broken into 10 parts. So each part is 1/10. Later, we did fifths. So the yellow rectangle represents fifths. You see, it still takes up the same amount of space as the whole, but now it has 5 pieces. The pieces are bigger, and if you notice, each piece ends at 2/10. And the next one's 4/10, and the next one's 6/10, 8/10, and so forth. But what if we broke it into fourths? So here we have a rectangle that's been broken into fourths. So as you see, the pieces don't always line up right on the tenths. If I draw these lines up, you can see a little bit closer. At the end of the first fourth, it sort of lines up between the 2 and the 3. The second fourth is exactly on the 5, and the third fourth is in between the 7 and the 8. And so that's how we get the decimal values for fourths. When you have 1/4 at this point, this is the 1/4 point, you see that it lands halfway between 2 and 3. Well, if these are tenths, in between every tenth, you could make 10 more spots to represent the hundredths. Well, if we did that, the 1/4 lands exactly on 2/10 and 5/100. So that's why we say that 1/4 is equivalent to 25/100. Well, this would be the 2/4. If we look straight up, we can see that the 2/4 does land right on a tenth. So 2/4 would be equivalent to 5/10. But sometimes we say 50/100. Where the 3/4 is, if we look straight up, we see that it lands between the 7 and the 8 as well. So on 3/4, the decimal equivalent is going to be 7/10 and then 5 more hundredths. So we call it 75/100. So these are the decimal equivalents to fractions. 1/4 is 25/100, 2/4 is 50/100, and 3/4 is 75/100. 4/4 would equal 1 whole. And you can see that 10/100 is a whole. In the same way that 5/5 equals 1 whole and 10/10 equals 1 whole. Anytime the numerator and the denominator are the same, it equals 1 whole. So let's look at some examples. Here we're going to write the decimal that corresponds with the fractional part. So on number 1, the first thing we need to do is count the fractional parts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 3/10. 3/10 is very easy to write a decimal because decimals come in tenths. So in this case, you can just put 0.3. On number 2, if we count the pieces, we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this time, instead of 3/10, like number 1, we have 3/5. And remember, fifths have to go by 2/10. So this is 2/10, 4/10, 6/10. So number 2 would be 6/10. Let's look at number 3. Here we have 4 pieces, and 2 out of the 4 are shaded. So now we have to think about where is the decimal equivalent for fourths. So remember, the first fourth is 25/100, and the second fourth is 50/100. Or you could say 5/10. 5/10 and 50/100 are equivalent. So let's look at number 4. Again, we have 4 pieces, but this time 3 are shaded. So 3/4 equals 25/100, 50/100, 75/100. So the decimal equivalent to this rectangle is 75/100. Let's try this one. This is 1/4, so it would be 25 hundredths. Let's look at the last one. First, let's count the pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 8 of the 10 are shaded. So for number 6, 8/10. All right, you try some on your own, and if you need help, you can come back and rewatch the video. Good luck!